Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing well. So, based on my last video, I got a comment wanting me to do a cityscape painting. So, I decided to do the following cityscape painting that I will be posting a picture here. So, in order to make it a bit challenging, I wanted to try to do it with three colors and the following brushes, and I will go into the details of the tools later. But the most important thing is will be doing this painting and I will not be doing any underdrawing with a pencil. So this will be the specific challenge for this video, and I hope you like the video and the process. And if you have any questions regarding the tools that I'm using or some techniques that I will be using during the painting, please don't hesitate in leaving them in the comment section below. And let's get into the tools. So guys, for the paints and tools that I will be using in this painting, I wanted to just stick to basically three colors, and this is to make it simple and make the painting more vibrant. As you increase the number of paints and the number of pigments, it would be more easy to achieve a more muted and more dark and muddy colors. So I wanted it to stay vibrant as much as possible, so I'm just gonna stick to three colors in this painting. And I wanted to also include a student grade. A student grade is basically paint which has a binder to pigment ratio which is greater than the other artist grade. And this is just to show you that it's okay to mix and match and stuff, and it's okay to mix or paint with student grade as long as you achieve the results you want. So the paints that I'll be using in this video, or painting in specific, is the Helio Turquoise from Schmincke, the transparent yellow, which I also did the painting in my last video, and this is the permanent red light from Van Gogh. Regarding the brushes that I'll be using a Chinese brush. There's like a that will substitute my mop brush, and this is to make the big and huge washes that I want. I will be using a size 4 brush from Winsor and Newton. This is a sable brush. And finally, I will be using from their series 7 the size 0 brush for the final touch up, and if I want the details that I cannot achieve with the size 4 brush, I will do it with this specific brush. So guys, as you can see here, I have taped 14 by 19 centimeter paper. It's Saunders Waterford 200 GSM paper, and I'm using a very pale wash of Helio Turquoise to do an outline of the painting. And this step is really crucial because for this step you have to be very careful, since all the painting and the work and the detail that you will be putting in later throughout the painting will be basically based on the outline that you have done here. So take your time with this. And as you can see, the video is approximately sped up for 2 times or 2.5 times. So and I have chopped the parts, some parts of it, so that it won't be a very long painting. So I continue by doing an outline for the background of the painting, and I don't put in a lot of detail and a lot of effort in this because it's the background and it would be more of a pale wash and not so much detail, and that's why it won't be as prominent in the picture. So I want the focus for the people who are viewing this to be on the building themselves, and then the eye of the viewer should be like more placed on the background and stuff. So here I do an outline using the Helio Turquoise of the lake, and while it's still wet I try to inject some of the permanent red light to indicate the reflection of the buildings on the sea. I also use some mixture of the transparent yellow, since the colors are more of orangish color. I go on mixing a bit of the orange color with the blue so that it gives me more of a muted black color. I will use it as my neutral in this sense, and this is to do the reflection of the more dark parts of the building, as you can see in the painting. Then I do a very pale wash using the Helio Turquoise purely to do the sky. I don't want it to be so dramatic, so I keep it simple. And then use a bit of the mixture of the blue with red to do the background, which is the hills, as you can see. I just wanted to be more dark than the sky so that I would put that separation between the sky and the background. I also try to work wet and wet just to give this soft feeling. I don't want any hard edges at this point. I just want to make like the colors and the temperature correct before I go more into the details. I noticed that some of the parts of the lake are too dark, so I remove it by dabbing the piece of tissue on the painting, as you see. And now I'm using a dark mix that I explained earlier to do the outline of the separation between the buildings and the lake. Now I go on using the dark mix that I explained to do a very detailed outline to the shapes of the building individually, and I start by the right side of the buildings and specifically the rooftop so that I know how high each building is and I would not blow up the picture and make it out of proportion. Now I start by adding a bit of details, not too much detail. I'm just still at the stage of knowing where each building is and where it stops, and I'm just doing an outline for each building and each rooftop since there are many buildings in the picture and I want to convey this idea of many buildings and the crowdedness of the building and being intertwined. As you can see here, I'm taking my time with each detail and each building because this is a very crucial point because I want to be sure that the proportion of each part and every significant part of the painting and each building is correct before I move more into the detail of the windows and the colors. At this point, I'm carefully looking at the reference picture and trying to compare it to my paintings to get the proportions right and every detail that I want. I don't want to put so many detail, I just want it to be as enough as I wanted to convey the idea of it being a building, but surely I don't want to include every single detail since this is not a hyper realistic painting. Now I move on putting the second layer, which is a bit darker than the first layer, and I'm using this to indicate the highlight and the shadows of the painting. This step is important to give the buildings and the rooftops more of a shape and more of a 3D look. And let me know, guys, if you're liking the whole process of this painting, and if the reference picture at the bottom right corner is helpful in my tutorials, since I would like to hear your feedback on each of my tutorials and would love to hear back from you. So please don't hesitate in leaving your ideas and your comments down in the section below. And now you can see that I'm moving more on the buildings themselves instead of focusing on the roof, since I have basically decided where the upper limit is for the rooftops. So now I'm moving below the roofs and working more on the building themselves and on the windows. So I go on by adding the third layer for my painting, and this is approximately the last layer that I will be using in the painting. I don't want to go too dark so that it will overpower the more lighter parts of the painting, since it will be an ongoing of darkening each section of the painting and it will not finish. So this is the third layer. I also include all the shadow parts of the cast shadow of the windows that are present on the rooftops. At this stage, I also decide to put all the details and the shadows and the rooftop so that I will be done with all the nitty gritty parts of the rooftop, and I could be more relaxed and move into the body of the building and work on the windows and more of the details and the lakes and the reflection. Now I'm taking a bit of break from the rooftops since it's almost done, and I start working more on the details of the building itself, and I start putting down the darkest parts of the building where I see the big blocks are, and then I'll be moving more on the towards the details of the building, including the doors and the windows. So I noticed that the rooftops are a bit of too gray, so I decided to add a bit of more color to it. So I mix a mixture of the gray that I had with a bit of blue turquoise, and I glazed over the whole rooftop so that it would be more of a saturated blue color. Then I decided to work on the rightmost building, which is the shortest building among all the buildings, and I noticed that I have not put any details in that, so I started working on that specific building and put in the details and glazing over the darks and the shadow needed. I then moved towards the street, as you can see in the reference picture, and I start to lay in a more muted red color this time. I used the same gray color with a bit of the permanent red light, and I use it to do the corner, as you can see, and then I add of a more of a bluish tint color to do the whole street itself, and add a more dark brownish dark as a rim for the whole street. And as you can see, I'm working now on the details of the building itself, on the windows and on the doors and on the small parts, everything that can be painted with the size 4 brush that I'm using. And you will see soon, after I work on the lake itself and the reflection, I'll be switching towards the size 0 brush, the Winsor and Newton, so that I do the smallest parts and add the highlights. Now I move towards the reflection of the building. I try to do the reflections as close as that of the original building, since they are basically a reflection, but at this point I'm adding a tint of blue to it, so that's why you see more of a muted red color, since this is expected, since the color itself not only reflects the color of the building but also the color of the sky, so it's expected to not give an exact one-to-one relation to the building itself but more of a muted color. Now I'm adding the darkest darks and the darkest reflections with the darkest mix I have done throughout the whole painting, and that is expected since the reflection is a bit of darker than the original, as I previously mentioned. And after this I'll be adding more of the details of the buildings, like the window reflection and the door reflection, as you can see here. Finally, I add some of the streaks and the small waves and the ripples that are present on the lake surface, and this is more to indicate that this is water and it's a reflection of the buildings themselves. At this stage, I let the whole painting dry and I start working on the background, since this is the last step that I'll be doing. I add a bluish color, a pure blue, to the background to reflect the hills that are present in the background and the farthest part of the painting, which are more of a muted black color. But I add a bit of color to it to increase the interest of the background instead of being a pitch black color. And I never use black, I mix my own blacks because that will make the painting more interesting and the colors more interesting to the eye and to the viewer. While the paint is still wet, I decide to add a bit of green to it, a mixture of the blue and the yellow that I had in my palette, and this is to add more of a visual interest in the background instead of it being neutral. And I do the whole thing while the paint is still wet so that I would achieve a more of a uniform and more of a blended color instead of having hard edges. I then move on the more of a closer background. As you see, this is the hill and the foliage behind the buildings, and I use a combination of the yellow and the blue to give more of a muted green color, and I start dabbing red so that I show the foliage as seen in the reference picture. Once the background is dried, I lay in the second layer to darken more of the background. I use the smallest brush that I have to add a highlight to the background that I want to indicate the poles and the small lights. I don't overdo it so that it doesn't get more detailed than the foreground, and the viewer's eyes, I don't want the viewer's eyes to concentrate on the background. I want them to concentrate first on the foreground, then go into the background and see the details. So at this point I'm adding a bit of detail here and there. It's like the final touches. I decide to use a bit of white gouache to add or to restore the highlights. Some artists and painters don't like to use that, but I wanted to do that to give more of the dynamic look and the dynamic color and the color range in the picture. And then I also end the whole process by adding some detail to the background of the foliage in the background, more greens and more reds, and that's the whole painting. Hey guys, thank you so much for sticking around till the end of this video. If you have any questions regarding the tools or the techniques that I used in this video, please don't hesitate to leave them down in the comment section below. A sticker here so that you can see my other videos and my tutorials, and if you have any recommendations or any requests for different types of painting or subject, please also don't hesitate and let me know. And till the next video, I hope you stay safe and take care guys. Bye bye.